Truth and Reconciliation, a Native Black American's message to the African diaspora. The internet diaspora wars have been raging on, gaining momentum across social media platforms.
More of a ratio that we're honestly doing well. They just feel like you guys are just not doing much.
Parents are from New York.
Americans, they don't know where they're from, you know.
I think American black people are the most lost black people in the world. We are lost.
Honestly, it's in all of our collective interest to redirect that energy towards a system that oppresses us all. But before that can happen, truth and reconciliation is absolutely necessary in this ongoing verbal battle between Africans and Black Americans. It was surprising, even hurtful, to learn that some Africans migrating to the United States and beyond harbor so much vitriol and animosity towards Black Americans. For someone like myself who grew up in an era where Black Americans passionately supported Africa and longed to reconnect with the continent, this discovery cuts deep. The diaspora divide. Recently, Black Americans went viral for calling for a boycott of African hair shops. But here's a deeper question. Do Africans support Black American businesses? Let's be honest. Black Americans can only boycott a business if we've been patronizing it. So when Black Americans say we're not going to support African businesses, that carries weight. So when Black Americans say we're not going to support African businesses, that carries weight, because those are the very businesses that many Africans in the U.S. depend on. But let's ask the reverse. Do Africans support Black American businesses in return? The answer is no. Not on any significant level. It's not a two-way street. Africans want support from Black Americans, but they rarely reciprocate. In fact, in my experience, I've witnessed scores of African migrants move into Black communities and pirate from the culture, similar to what the Chinese have done. Some African migrants bootleg the music, art, and clothing of Black American artists and leaders, selling imitation versions of our very own creations at a lower price. This practice intercepts the economic trade from Black Americans and their artists, depriving them of rightful revenue while the profits are sent overseas, often with little to no engagement or trade in return. It's a one-sided exchange. So the question must be asked, is that fair? Economic exploitation absent reciprocity. Let's take it even further. When has any African country, just one, ever sent aid to Black Americans? I'll wait. The answer is none. Not a dime, not a program, not a gesture. The entire world knows that Black Americans are a vulnerable minority inside the United States. The world knows that we've been forced to survive in one of the most dangerous countries on earth for Black people. But where's the support? Where's the economic empowerment from Africa that would allow Black Americans to stand independently of white-owned businesses? Nowhere. Instead, Africans migrate into the United States to make money for themselves. And truthfully, most Black Americans don't fault anyone for trying to seek out a better life. But let's call it what it is. There's no wealth sharing, no collaboration, and no empowerment extended to Native Black Americans. If this dynamic was reversed, if any other group came to America, extracted the resources, refused to support the vulnerable community already there, it will be called what it truly is: exploitation. And exploitation is exactly what it is: cultural distance and division. Let's be real. Many Africans who come to the U.S. don't even pretend to see Black Americans as brothers and sisters. They're vocal about it. They say it in private and sometimes even in public. Africans often claim that as children in America, they were bullied by Black Americans and called African booty scratchers. This is how they justify their contempt for Black Americans. However, this is disingenuous and immature for adults. Black Americans, especially as children, are known to make jokes on one another. When I was a child, I was called an African booty scratcher amongst other equally offensive things. It is part of the culture, and when you assimilate into the culture, you learn to roast back. That is how Black Americans get respect from jokers and bullies. Still, while children can be mean, it does not justify enmity and exploitation from adults. Africans often use words like "akata" to describe Black Americans, a slur meant to distance themselves from native blacks. It's well known that some African migrants tell their children not to befriend Black American children. They isolate themselves from Black Americans, do not build relationships with Black Americans, and refuse to connect us with the motherland. So I ask again, does that sound like brotherhood? Does that sound like sisterhood? Is it fair to Black Americans who were already betrayed centuries ago when African elites and kingdoms sold our ancestors into slavery? And now in 2026, are we still expected to support people that do not support us? Make it make sense. Go ahead, I'll wait. Truth and reconciliation. At the very least, our African brothers and sisters should be chastised for leaving captured Africans stranded in the United States, forced to endure one of the cruelest systems of racism and oppression that this world has ever seen. At the very least, doors should be open for Black Americans to return to Africa if we choose, not closed unless we could buy our way in with hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because let's be clear, Black Americans did not pillage, plunder, or exploit African countries. It's easy to punch down at a people who've been exploited since birth. It's easy to exploit Black Americans because we've always had no protection for centuries. But because we are resilient, just because we've survived in America's cage, does not mean that we are not vulnerable. It does not mean that the abuse should continue, especially from those who claim to be our brothers and sisters. So I say directly, stop contributing to the abuse of Native Black Americans. Now let me address this so-called debate floating online with Tariq Nasheed, FBA, and the noise around whether Black Americans have a right to delineate themselves. First, let me be clear. I am a Native Black American. I do not call myself FBA because I believe that Tariq Nasheed is more of a hustler than a revolutionary. I got nothing against him, and I respect the lineage of the foundational Black Americans, but that's just my preference. But whether you like FBA or not, whether you follow Tariq Nasheed or not, Native Black Americans have every right to esteem their unique experience. We have every right to delineate ourselves from African countries that do not share our history of chattel slavery, Jim Crow, and systematic oppression in the United States. That is not division, that's truth. Now, I believe in Pan-African unity as a theory. I believe Black people across the globe should work together, but the reality is different. Africans who migrate into the U.S. overwhelmingly assimilate to white American culture. They adopt white American beliefs and too often the very anti-Black attitudes that oppress us. They treat us like outsiders in our own country. And when Black Americans finally stand up for ourselves, when we demand recognition for who we are, we're attacked and assaulted for doing so. That's hypocrisy, and that's weak. Reciprocity and exploitation. The truth is, every nationality that has come to America has used Native Black Americans. We fought for everyone's right to migrate here, especially Africans. We believed we were connected by melanin, by shared struggle. We welcomed newcomers into our neighborhoods, supported their businesses, and celebrated their cultures. But they took from us. They profited in our communities and sent their wealth back home with little to no reinvestment in the people who made it possible. And still we seek unity. The great return or the great transaction. There is not a single African country with a program designed to economically empower Black Americans and grant us dual citizenship without an exorbitant price tag. Even Ghana, the year of the return, beautiful in concept, required massive financial investment for Black Americans to settle there. So again, ask yourself, is this true unity or is that exploitation? How can anyone claim to stand for Black unity and liberation while punching down at the most vulnerable Black people in the world, Native Black Americans? That is not solidarity. That's manipulation, exploitation, and character assassination. What does real reciprocation look like? When Black Americans learned that Africa was suffering, our most popular pop artist wrote a song and called upon the world's biggest stars to raise awareness. The song sparked a historic funding campaign that united people, Black and white, to help African nations. That artist was Michael Jackson, and that song was We Are the World.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one.
When Black Americans learned of apartheid, we protested in the streets.
Glorious way, bicycling, free South Africa, free our Mandela, protected by the red, the black, and the green, with a K.
Our top hip-hop artists made songs, and Black Americans secretly funded the revolution for the liberation and empowerment of Black South Africans. Question: once South Africans obtained their freedom, did they reach back to reciprocate? Did their top artists make songs for Black Americans? Did they secretly fund any agenda to help Black Americans? How can the African continent reciprocate today? Develop programs that grant Black American citizenship without excessive fees, establish housing and workforce initiatives to help Black Americans integrate and stabilize, match Black American investments when we bring capital into African nations. A call to the African nations of the world. Remember us, the Black Americans who fought for you, who cried with you, and supported you even when we were held hostage in another land. Remember that we might be influential, but we are also the most vulnerable. We do not own our own land or print our own money. We have no army to protect us. When we reach out to you, embrace us. Don't exploit us. Do not scam Black American migrants. Do not add hidden fees for citizenship or land. Do not make unification a transaction. If you want unity, lead by example. If you want solidarity, lift up your own people. If you want liberation, stand beside those who have carried the heaviest change and for the longest, reclaiming our souls. And let me close with this. The problem in the Black American community is too many want to be seen. Too many want individual gain. Too many want to be leaders. Everybody wants to be the chief. Nobody wants to be the Indian. Everybody wants to shine, but very few wants to sacrifice. We have lost our soul. Let's reclaim our soul that has carried us for so many centuries. So I say, stand with Native Black Americans, not as colonizers, not as exploiters, but as brothers, as sisters, as family. Because until that day comes, I will remain where I have always been, Native Black American and proud. Power to the people. The At-Risk Movement is an anti-violence organization focused on uplifting high-risk youth through mentorship, economic development, and creative cultural programs. Learn more or support our work at www.atriskmovement.com. My name is G.S. Brooks of the At-Risk Movement, and I approve this message. The psychology of freedom. What is freedom? Is it simply the absence of bars and chains? Or is it something deeper? The Psychology of Freedom takes readers inside the walls of prison to explore a profound truth. A person can be physically free, yet mentally imprisoned, and physically confined, yet mentally and spiritually liberated. Through lived experience, the Psychology of Freedom reveals how correctional institutions shape behavior, relationships, and identity, not only for prisoners, but for families, communities, and society as a whole. Discover the hidden psychological effects of incarceration, the pathologies that can outlast a prison sentence, and the mindset shifts that can transform adversity into opportunity. This is more than just a book about prison. It's a book about reclaiming the mind. The Psychology of Freedom by G.S. Brooks. Available now on Amazon.com. Because true freedom begins within.